promotion and implementation of cultural policies in the face of contemporary challenges. My name is Annika Söderlund, and I work as a Senior Advisor of Culture at the Nordic Council of Ministers. The Nordic Council of Ministers is the official intergovernmental body for cooperation in the Nordic region and includes all the Nordic countries, Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, Sweden, the Faroe Islands, Greenland, and the Åland Islands. There is a need to reaffirm the urgency of protecting and promoting cultural diversity and to place cultural rights, equal access to culture, social cohesion, and inclusion at the forefront. The culture sector has been severely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. This is evident in countries all over the world. In the Nordic context, we have been following the development closely by gathering knowledge and providing regional platform for political dialogue and exchange. This session will address policy frameworks, measures, and tools to strengthen the resilience of the sector. We will look into conditions of artists and culture professionals, reinvestments in the culture sector, and diversifying funding sources. An integrated approach, considering all these different priorities, could help reposition culture as a public good. We will now start with the interventions from ministers and vice ministers. I'm inviting you to take the floor per speaking order, and I'm kindly reminding you that each of you have 4 minutes per intervention. I would like to start with inviting High Excellency Ms. Silvia Riva Gonzalez, Minister of Culture and Sports of the Principality of Andorra. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you and good morning, excellent ministers, representatives of international organizations, and the Secretariat and permanent entities of UNESCO and our host of Mexico. It is an honor and a privilege to be here representing the Principality of Andorra and to share these ideas with you. First, I want to thank the Mexican government for their warm welcome in this excellent organization, and also want to thank UNESCO and UNESCO Chair for organizing such a wonderful World Conference that will give continuity and will promote the free exchange of ideas and knowledge, and to promote the collaboration among the member states. Undoubtedly, after the last World Conference in Stockholm, right now the world is completely different, and mechanisms to safeguard culture, of course, need to be different. This is an area to exchange information. The topic that we will be talking about today is to reinforce and renew cultural policies, and I want to talk about 2 things that we have implemented in Aurora: the creation of policies to make our cultural sector to be more dynamic, more resilient, taking into account the nature of culture, and also the need to reinforce it because of external forces, an urgent task that has been confirmed by COVID pandemic. During this crisis, we launched a participatory effort having all the stakeholders of the cultural sector. That was to have a common diagnosis of our sector. And that consultation allowed us to set priority of professionals of culture, which allowed us to set those great strategic guidelines and related projects. Based on that, we developed the cultural plan, which include the different specific actions to implement the priorities of the sector. Also, the status of the artist is a topic that was mentioned yesterday and today as well. And also to acknowledge the condition of artists and to provide them with fiscal or tax advantages and security, and that would allow also companies to be able to sponsor cultural projects and to deduct that from their taxes. And it also allows us to diversify funding of culture. The second element that I would like to briefly comment is equitable participation of the cultural life. In Andorra, we have a long tradition of receiving people from different origins, and that is why that is something that we have always supported. We foster having associations and funding cultural projects because we have different and diversified cultural activities that allow the entire society to participate, resulting in social cohesion. And public entities take into account multiculturalism and having spaces to favor multiculturality. I would just mention some challenges to professionalize the sector as well as the digital transformation. These are topics that I am convinced that are of the main concern that we all share. Thank you, and that is why UNESCO will help us to face this topic. We said that the union will give us the force and the strength. We are here to fight and to keep all these efforts to favor culture. Thank you so much to you all. Muchas gracias. Silvia Riva González, secretaria de Cultura y Deportes del Principado de Andorra. Ahora quiero invitar a Su Excelencia Sabina Orellana Cruz, secretaria de Culturas, Descolonización y Despatriarcalización de Bolivia. Tiene usted la palabra.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. First, I would like to speak in my language. I want to say hello to Bolivia, and also I would like to address all of you. First, I would like to thank Mexico and its government and UNESCO. I would like to start my presentation by saying that Bolivia, it is the result of the fights of the Bolivian people. It is a state that acknowledges plurality, organization types of our peoples and their territories by having interculturality at the core. And also we have knowledge to look to have a good living life correctly and to have respect and to supplement the different peoples just like on earth. We believe that this is the only way to deal with the disaster that the current development model is taking us. This is the option that we have, the culture of life. In this way, Bolivia proposes to this conference 5 points. Cultural policy should not be absolute and unique. It needs to be diverse. Cultural policy must be inclusive, taking into account the history, memory, and fight of peoples, betting to the construction of the culture of life. That is to say, by acknowledging our past and to learn on that lesson so that we can develop a future so all the cultures can coexist with no priorities of one people over the other, to guarantee the economic growth towards social and cultural development of a people in harmony with the earth. 2, to promote multiculturality, to move forward with cultural policies, developing joint actions from multilateral organizations to acknowledge our historical memory by including a cultural policy that will allow us to set the rigorous research of cultures, arts, and problems of development, to have a democratic alternatives, participatory, economic, and socially inclusive policies framed in the respect for the earth when searching for living well. Number 3, to strengthen the cultural heritage, we make a call to all the countries to work to mitigate climate change effects, to develop mechanisms that will help us to protect and preserve the cultural heritage that modernity of capitalism is endangering. 40 years ago, in this same scenario, we considered the importance of protecting and revaluing cultural expressions and traditions that will show the lifestyles of the peoples and their history. But the excessive marketing and the undue appropriation of them is generating stress between countries, and that is why we consider that we need to have an exhaustive review of the different guidelines without by following their histories and memories to foster cultural industries. In recent decades, cultural industries are becoming into a strategic area for the productive and economic areas, promoting job creations based on the idea of creating, innovating, besides the development of knowledge, recovering the soul or the spirit, the knowledge, development of art that must be promoted with a deep sense of this patriarchal and decolonization. It is key to me to have a dialogue, to exchange, to value what we have, what we can create, and live under solidarity with this earth to be able to live well. And number 5, to build a culture of life. And we propose to this conference to work with the vision of multilateralism, diplomacy of the peoples, building up the culture of life with dignity, solidarity, harmony of the peoples by including the approaches of decolonization and depatriarchalization as core elements of cultural policies that will eliminate the violence that we have had, inequality among people, and destructing this earth. Let's make an effort to keep the violence guitars and artists for them to sing to life, for the weapons that destroy our hopes of our countries will disappear. We suggest for this conference to support the design of depatriarchalization that will allow us to have the culture of life, to be able to have a more humane, equitable world with social justice. And to conclude, we want to invite you all, those of you who would like to be part of our National Summit of Cultural Heritage of Bolivia that will be held November 10 and 11 in my country. Thank you so much for listening on behalf of Bolivia.
Thank you, Minister of Cultures, Decolonization and Depatriarchalization of Bolivia. And now I would like to invite High Excellence Ms. Nina Obuljen-Korčnjak, Minister of Culture and Media of Croatia. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to start by expressing gratitude to the Mexican government and UNESCO for hosting the conference and for a great coordination, but also for the exhaustive process of consultation ahead of this conference. I had the honor to chair the European consultation, the Group 1 and 2, and I'm glad to see that much of the proposals that we have discussed regionally have found its way in the declaration. I guess the point or the question for all of us here is what we have achieved and what we want to see ahead of this Mondiacult conference. So when reflecting about the achievements, I think I share the opinion of many of you that many concepts that were launched in Mexico 40 years ago, in Stockholm 24 years ago, that were part of our discussion during Culture and Development Decade or emerged from our Creative Diversity Report, have become widely accepted and found its way in the mainstream of cultural policy making. And here I think in particular on the link between culture and development, promotion of cultural diversity, improvement of the status of artists, to mention just a few. However, while we can proudly say that the implementation of various instruments have given results, with the time there are new challenges ahead of us. Pandemic, one of the greatest challenges that we have seen so far for cultural sector, but also climate change, economic crisis that often results with budgetary cuts for culture, wider gap between culture and creative industries, or the more commercial segment of arts and those that need massive public intervention, etc. So as a contribution of Croatia to our discussion, I would like to highlight a few points that I think will be guiding our culture policies ahead and after this conference. First, the status of the artist, a need to put always artists and creators in the center of culture policy. They are those with whom everything starts. Access to culture, which we see as a human right, with changing habits and influx of digitally distributed contents, a trend that accelerated with the pandemic. We constantly need to adapt our policies in order to ensure audience development and assist both our citizens to have access to quality and diverse content. Of course, protection and promotion of cultural diversity, finding synergies between culture and other sectors, education, development, economic and others, and of course, make our culture more resilient to crisis. This brings me to the final 2 points of my intervention. The one relates to COVID pandemic, which hit particularly hard artists and cultural professionals who lost their jobs, and subsequently many changed their professions due to restrictions. I'm proud to share with you that in Croatia, we decided that either for the first 2 months to keep cultural venues open throughout the pandemic. Our museums, theaters, cinemas, they were all the time working. We found a way to do it with a smaller number of people and to compensate as much as we could for the losses. However, the pandemic taught us how vulnerable cultural sector is and taught us that we need to be prepared for future crises, which are undoubtedly going to happen. And my last point referred to the mission of UNESCO, and what we often do is promotion of peace. Croatia, as a country that has experienced brutal Serbian aggression 3 decades ago, has been a country strongly advocating for peace across the world and ready to assist in particular with rebuilding of cultural heritage hand in hand with our colleagues in UNESCO. Today, when there is a war at the borders of European Union, we once again strongly condemn Russian aggression on Ukraine and advocate for peace. We cannot accept attempts to erase other people's culture, and we stand for preservation of Ukrainian heritage. Having received in Croatia almost 30,000 Ukrainian refugees, I would like to reiterate our support to providing artists and cultural and creative professionals with a safe working environment while they are in our country. But also we shared with our Ukrainian colleagues who remained in Ukraine our experiences of evacuation and inside protection of cultural heritage. At the end, I'm glad that we have worked together to adopt tomorrow, hopefully, our declaration, and I hope that we'll all be guided by the goals that we have set in this important document. Thank you very much once again for your attention.
Thank you, Minister of Culture and Media of Croatia. And then I would like to invite High Excellency Ms. Catherine Katungu Furaha, Minister of Culture, Arts and Heritage of Democratic Republic of the Congo. Please, the floor is yours.
Mesdames et messieurs, c'est un grand honneur et un privilège immense de prendre la parole à l'occasion de ce prestigieux rendez-vous autour de la culture et du développement durable.
It is an honor for me to address all of you in this conference. I speak on behalf of the President of the Democratic Republic of the Congo and, of course, our people. I greet you and I thank Mexico, its government, and UNESCO for the organization of this
nous permet,
important
dans la
conference.
suite des consultations régionales
A conference
réalisées au
that
début
allows
de
us,
cette année
after
avec,
regional consultations that took
intérêt et
place
volonté
early this year,
manifeste de rassembler nos énergies et partager nos vues
in
sur
order
les
to
options
bring
à
our
prendre
our
pour le
energy
futur de nos
together and
politiques
share our
culturelles
opinions
face aux
and
défis du
insights
développement
on the
durable.
future of our
Ces
cultural
travaux
policies
préliminaires
vis-à-vis
qui ont
the
été
challenge
menés au
of
niveau de la
sustainable
zone Afrique
development. These
sous le leadership de la
preliminary
République du
consultations
Sénégal
that took place
et
in
dont la
Africa
République démocratique
with
du
the
Congo avait
leadership
assuré la
of
charge
Senegal
du rapporteur avaient débouché sur la définition
and
des priorités
with my
majeures
country
pour nos politiques culturelles avec la clé des
in charge
recommandations
of the
aussi
relator.
pertinentes et
We
précises.
prepared
Ces travaux
some
préliminaires, je disais,
contributions and some
pour lesquels
insights,
la
and this
République démocratique du
preliminary
Congo s'est résolument
work
engagée sur la voie
with
de la
which my
réforme
country
de son
committed
secteur culturel. Et
to
la République
reform
a
its
fait sienne
cultural
toutes les priorités
sector.
identifiées et s'emploie
My
à
country
mettre en place
adopted
un
all
écosystème
the
favorable
priorities
à la
and
mise en œuvre
all
de toutes les recommandations issues
the
de
needs
ces
to
consultations
implement a
régionales.
favorable
À
ecosystem in
travers
order
de
to
nouvelles
implement all
orientations d'une politique
recommendations
culturelle inclusive et efficace,
of this
mon
regional
pays s'engage
consultation.
à renforcer
And
l'impact
upon
de la
looking
culture dans la
for
diversification de
a more
l'économie,
inclusive
son rôle
cultural
dans le
policy, we
rétablissement de
try
la
to
paix et
insert
la cohésion sociale et sa place
economy in the
incontestable dans le
construction
processus
of peace
d'intégration
and
régionale. Mon pays
social
s'engage à
cohesion
promouvoir les droits d'accès à la
during
culture en
integration. My
impliquant toutes les
country
générations
commits
ainsi
to
que toutes les
promote
personnes
the right
vulnérables.
of access to
C'est pour
culture
cela
for all
qu'une grande réflexion
generations
est
and
en
all
cours pour le
vulnerable
développement des
people.
infrastructures
That is
culturelles
why
et
we
l'intégration
are
des cultures
reflecting
fondamentales dans l'éducation formelle
upon
et non
ways to
formelle.
integrate
Mon ministère
cultures
a
into the
entrepris dès lors
education
une
system.
réflexion
My
profonde
ministry
pour l'amélioration des cadres
implemented deep
juridiques des politiques
reflection to
culturelles au
improve
niveau
the
national,
legal
ainsi que pour la
frameworks
mise en œuvre effective
as well as
des
legal and
instruments
cultural
juridiques
frameworks
internationaux auxquels mon
at
pays fait
national
partie.
level and implement
Mesdames et
legal
messieurs,
tools at an
il est
international level
inconcevable de
that my
développer
country
l'économie
executed.
créative
Yes,
et
ladies and
soutenir la
gentlemen,
croissance inclusive sans prendre en compte l'amélioration des conditions
we
sociales
cannot
des
support
acteurs
creative
culturels.
economy if we do
La
not
politique culturelle
improve
que
the
nous sommes en
social
train d'élaborer
environment
entend
of
définir
creators, and
et
the
valoriser les
cultural
statuts des
policy that
artistes
we
et
are
promouvoir les
aiming at
industries
preparing
culturelles et
together
créatives à travers un
has
système
to
renforcé
foster
de
the
protection des droits d'auteur
condition
et
of
d'intégration du
artists
numérique.
as well as the
En effet,
protection of
la prolifération des
copyrights and the
technologies de l'information et de
integration
la
of digital
communication
technologies,
impacte
because the
aujourd'hui les
proliferation
rapports entre le
of
peuple
the
tant sur le
ICTs
plan
has an
commercial que
impact
culturel,
across
le numérique jouant
culture.
depuis un moment un
Commercial
rôle
and
majeur
cultural
dans la
relationships
promotion des valeurs
have
et
proven that
commercialisation des produits
digitalization
culturels.
has a
C'est
key
le lieu
role
ici
in the
de rappeler
fostering and
également que
valuing
la
of
République
cultural
démocratique du
products.
Congo
It is
accorde une
worth
place
mentioning as
importante
well that
au
my
patrimoine
country
matériel et immatériel
gives
dans
a
les binômes
special
culturel
place
et développement
to
durable.
cultural
Parmi les priorités définies
heritage
lors des consultations régionales en
of the
février
material
2022,
and
les États
immaterial
africains
ways of
ont
heritage.
été unanimes en ce
The
qui concerne la
African
protection,
states
la
during the
promotion et la
consultations
sauvegarde du
unanimously
patrimoine
agreed
culturel.
to
En
protect
vue de renforcer
the
la cohésion
fostering of
sociale
culture
et de
and
promouvoir la diversité
cultural
culturelle, la
heritage
République démocratique
in
du
order to
Congo
foster
s'emploie à
social
renforcer la
cohesion.
stratégie
And
de
my
lutte contre
country
le trafic
seeks
illicite
to
des biens culturels
reinforce
et s'est
the fight
engagé dans
against
un
the
processus de
illegal
dialogue
traffic
pour la
of cultural
restitution de ces biens
goods
culturels.
and launched a
Et
dialogue
pour ce
effort
qui est du
to
patrimoine
restitute
immatériel, un
and
élément majeur
recover
du
those
patrimoine
goods,
congolais a été
as
inscrit
well
sur la
as
liste
to
des
talk about
représentatifs du patrimoine
heritage.
culturel
A part of our
immatériel de
heritage is
l'humanité,
now part
la
of the
rumba
list
congolaise.
of the material
Désormais,
heritage of
patrimoine de
humanity.
l'humanité, la rumba congolaise est l'interface d'une industrie musicale
That is
congolaise en pleine
Orumba in
expansion
Congo.
depuis les années des
That
indépendances
which
africaines.
is
Ce
the
forum
most
est une bonne
representative
opportunité pour nous, ici
element of our
réunis,
music,
de
that is
renforcer
the
notre
rumba of
coopération
Congo, and it's
dans
a
le secteur de la
wonderful
culture, parce que
opportunity
ça
to
nous
reinforce
permet
our
de partager nos
collaboration under the
expériences pour
cultural
l'application des
umbrella in
cadres
order to
juridiques
share our
internationaux pour la protection et la
experiences
conservation
in
du
the
patrimoine en
implementation
temps de
of
guerre
legal
comme en temps de paix,
international
pour promouvoir la
frameworks and
propriété
for
intellectuelle
the
et la condition
protection
de
of
l'artiste
cultural
et pour s'engager à
heritage
mettre en place des
in peace
politiques
and war
de
times in order to
favoriser
foster
la
the acknowledgement of the
professionnalisation
status
des
of the
acteurs de la
artist,
libre
implement
circulation d'eux-mêmes
as well
et de leurs
policies that
biens.
allow
Je vous
for
remercie
free
infiniment pour
circulation
votre
of
particulière
artists
attention.
and their goods, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Minister of Culture, Arts and Heritage of Democratic Republic of the Congo. And then I would like to invite High Excellency Ms. Milagros Consuelo Hermano Lala, Minister of Culture of Dominican Republic. Please, the floor is yours.
Muy buenos días.
Good
hablar
morning.
rápido para que no nos toquen la cancioncita.
Good morning. I'll try to go a little
Muy buenos
faster.
días,
So, good
compañeros,
morning,
ministros de cultura,
dear
participantes.
colleagues, ministers of
Llegar
colleagues
hasta aquí
and
a,
participants.
intentar un
Now,
poco
being
defender
here
la
and try to
cultura
defend
parecería,
culture
y sus
might,
beneficios y sus
and its
valores,
benefits and
parecería
value
un acto
might
redundante.
seem
Sin embargo, en
something
estos
redundant.
tiempos de tantos
However, in
desafíos,
these
no
challenging
lo es.
times, it is not so.
Estar aquí
So
frente a
being
todos ustedes
here
es una gran
before all of
conquista,
you
un inmenso
is
logro
an
después de
achievement
tanto desafío que ha
after
vivido
so
la
many
humanidad.
challenges
Y en medio
that
de
humanity
tanta
has
barbarie,
endeavored.
no es menos
And in the
cierto
midst
que
of
como
these
comunidad
barbaric acts,
sentar
we
las
cannot
bases
believe
sobre las que
that
descansará el futuro de la
we
cultura
have
como
actually to
derecho
set the
y como bien
basis so that
común
culture can be
es
envisioned
un
as
deber.
a right and
Que todavía
a
en el mundo
duty.
podamos voltear la mirada
And
hacia
to
la
see
cultura e intentar
culture
unir
across
todas
the
estas
world
voluntades que
and bring
aquí
all
se
these
conjugan demuestra
wills
no
together
solo que la
proves not
cultura de
only
verdad
that
salva a los
culture
pueblos y los
actually can
une,
save people
sino
and bring them
que la
together,
humanidad
but also that
ciertamente a la
humankind,
humanidad le
without a
debemos
doubt,
siempre una segunda mirada.
needs
Esta
to
conferencia
be
confirma nuestro
seen
compromiso.
carefully time and again.
Dicen
Therefore,
que uno vuelve siempre a los mismos
we say
lugares
that
donde
we
amó la
go
vida,
back to
y
the
eso me
places where
sucede a
we
mí
love
aquí en
life, and that's
México,
what happens
porque fue aquí
for
donde
me in
descubrí
Mexico,
hace
because
muchos
here
años, siendo
I
estudiante de
discovered when I
arquitectura,
was a
el
student of
valor
architecture,
de la
I
cultura
discovered the
cuando
value of
sirve para
culture
difundir la
when it
patria.
is a way
Por mi
to
raza hablará el
disseminate
espíritu,
uh,
reza el
a
lema
country. Por mi
inscrito
raza
en el
hablará el
escudo de la
espíritu. That is
Universidad
what
Nacional
goes in the
Mexicana de
coat
la
of arms
UNAM.
of the
Y
National
eso me
Autonomous
llevé yo de
University.
aquí
That is the
hace
National
muchísimos
University
años, la
in Mexico.
grandeza
And that's what I
del
took
espíritu
home with me,
mexicano
the
para
greatness of
siempre.
Mexican spirit
La
forever.
cultura y su necesaria protección
Culture
a través de
and the need
políticas
to
públicas
protect through
eficientes,
efficient public
sostenibles y
policies,
duraderas
sustainable
nos
and
convoca
long-lasting,
a este encuentro.
calls us
Políticas públicas
to
que
this
garanticen
meeting in
la
order to
extensión de los
ensure the
beneficios a
expansion of
toda la
benefits
población
across
sin
all people
discriminación,
without
que provoquen la
discrimination,
exaltación de la
and
diversidad cultural para la
underscore cultural
confirmación de la
diversity in
identidad,
order to
la libertad
confirm
de creación y de
identity free
expresión, la
free of
preservación del
creation, as
patrimonio
well as
material e
preservation of material
inmaterial
and
y que
immaterial
fomenten
heritage, and
y
also
apoyen la sublime y compleja
support
creación artística abrazando
the
sus
sublime
múltiples formatos.
artistic
Hoy,
creation
40
across
años
all
después
formats. So
de la
40
primera edición
years
de
after the
Mondiacult,
first edition of
nuestra
Mondiacult,
región es
our
protagonista en la
regions
discusión sobre
are at
derechos
the core of
culturales,
discussion
la
of
cultura
cultural
como
rights
elemento para
and
construcción de
culture for the
ciudadanía
building
y
of
la economía
citizenship and
creativa
the
como un
creative
elemento
economy as a
fundamental
key
en la
element
creación de
for the
empleo de
creation
calidad.
of quality
Empleo de calidad
jobs,
que
quality
incluye a las
jobs,
poblaciones
including
marginadas, las poblaciones
marginated people,
vulnerables de nuestras
vulnerable people
sociedades.
across our
Durante la
societies.
pandemia, ese
During
tiempo
the
en el cual
pandemic,
vivimos
the
la
times where we
incertidumbre, el
experienced
miedo y el
uncertainty,
horror
fear,
del
and the
encierro,
horror
fue la
of
cultura la
lockdown,
ventana que nos
culture was the
permitió
window
respirar
that gave us
y
fresh
sobrevivir
air to
a la
breathe
terrible
and allowed
situación
us
de la
to
falta
survive the
de
terrible
movilidad.
situation of the lack of mobility we were
Llevados de las
experiencing.
manos por las nuevas
So hand in
tecnologías de la
hand with the new
información y las
information
redes sociales
technologies
que nos
and
unieron en la
social media that
distancia,
brought us
aprendimos
together
nuevas
across
formas
the
del
distance,
querer
we knew
y eso
new
garantizó
ways
nuestra
of
humanidad. La
wanting things.
cultura es
Therefore,
parte
culture
esencial para el
is
desarrollo
essential
y el
part
bienestar
of
en este nuevo
culture
mundo
and well-being in
post-pandemia
this
y en este
post-pandemic
nuevo
world
mundo en el
and
que
in this
buscamos
new
la
world
paz.
we are
Y hablando de
so
cultura de
badly
paz,
looking
no
for
quiero
peace culture. And
brincar
talking
este
about
momento
peace culture,
sin
I
invitarlos
want
a que
to
miremos
summon you,
con
invite
una
you
visión empática y
to
con
have
una
an
visión de
empathic
construcción la
vision
realidad y la
towards the
situación
reality and
del
the
país con el que
situation
compartimos
of
tierra,
the
con el que
country
compartimos
with which we
territorio
share
y que
territory
está
and land,
siendo
and that is
amenazada
being
su
threatened,
patrimonio
its
cultural
cultural
y su
heritage
subsistencia.
and its
A todos
survival. So
los invito a
please,
que
all of
le
you, let's
demos una mirada
join,
empática a
let's
Haití.
take an empathic
El
look
Ministerio de
to
Cultura de República
Haiti.
Dominicana en estos
So,
22 años de formación y
Dominican
posteriormente con la
Republic,
inclusión de los derechos culturales
with the
como
cultural
parte de
rights as
nuestra
part
Constitución,
of our
ha tenido un
Constitution,
crecimiento
has
constante.
had
Nuestros
ongoing
ejes
growth.
centrales
Our
son
main
la
axes are
investigación, la
research,
formación y
training,
la
and
difusión de las
education,
artes
as
y
well
la
as
cultura. Y tenemos
dissemination of arts and
grandes
culture.
retos
And we
en
have great
todas
challenges
estas
ahead of us
agendas.
across these
Dentro de
different
nuestro programa de
agendas.
formación, nuestras
In our
escuelas,
training and
tenemos la Escuela
education
Nacional de Bellas
curricula,
Artes.
we
Queremos
have the
formalizar y
National
titular a nuestros
Fine
estudiantes
Arts
del circuito de
Institute and
formación
also
artística para
artistic
lograr ingresar
education in
a un
order order.
estadio
to move towards a status for the confirmation of the Arts, Culture, and Heritage University at Dominican Republic. That is the quality of our students of fine arts, and our country is about to execute an agreement with relevant academic institutions. Our National Music Conservatory and its wonderful quality have allowed us for a collaboration agreement with the National Institute of Berkeley. And we are working in the creation of more positions for dissemination. After the pandemic, our infrastructure was badly beaten. Therefore, we have been working very strongly. And soon we will have a participative diagnosis in order to know how the sector is doing, but also how to foster the participation of citizens during the decision-making process. Therefore, we want to thank UNESCO for inviting us, for calling for international dialogue for culture to foster collaboration and multilateral actions. We take away conversations, and we understand, therefore, the need of having a cultural diplomacy policy as part of the actions to ensure exchange across our nations. There's an African saying that says, if you want to reach your destination fast, walk alone, but if you want to have a long-reaching journey, then walk with someone else. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister of Culture of Dominican Republic. And then I would like to invite High Excellency Mr. Avinash Tiluk, Minister of Arts and Cultural Heritage of Mauritius. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Excellencies, distinguished guests, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, buenos dias. I seize the opportunity to thank the Mexican government for their wonderful hospitality and for hosting this unique and historical conference, and also extending my gratitude to UNESCO. Having said so, my colleague ministers have claimed, and rightly so, that we have been through unseen before, challenging times before because of COVID-19. We are now, although almost back to normal, there are certain issues to be addressed. And this raises the question, what is the role and status of culture in the socio-economic development of the country? Should we today consider quantifying and qualifying the role of culture in the growth and progress of our respective countries? The model we have been operating includes the existing UNESCO conventions coupled with the national legislations. This remains very pertinent in this modern society, but we are still being faced with new challenges that urge us to review, reinvent, readapt our cultural policies. And not only because of COVID-19, but also because of the dynamics of the industry, which challenges us to adapt to evolving technologies, especially in the way we produce, deliver, and consume cultural products. Mauritius, as a small island developing state, has not been left untouched by this phenomenon. We have had to adapt our policies to the needs of the moment. Thus, a plethora of measures were executed to maintain the resilience of the cultural industry. While Mauritius has reinforced its cultural policies and has established various measures to encourage artistic creativity, it is important that we think in terms of the longer run for sustainable creative industry and the cultural sector. Accordingly, over and above various measures introduced, the government of Mauritius has set up in this financial year a National Resilience Fund for the support of the livelihood of Mauritian artists. This fund will enable us to further readapt the existing schemes and cater for emerging artistic forms, mainly brought by new technologies such as NFTs, metaverse, and so on. And as regards our creative sector, for a tangible and sustainable support, the implementation of the Status of the Artist Act is crucial. This is why Mauritius is benchmarking their best practices in this area, and introducing the status of the artist bill in Parliament very shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, each of our countries has a unique and yet very rich culture. At the same time, for small island developing states, the technical know-how and expertise is lacking and has to be consolidated. So far, the tremendous support of UNESCO has helped in properly implementing our large-scale projects. However, today we are challenged by trade-off between development and culture, and I personally believe they should be mutually beneficial. And we are also making an appeal that Article 16 of the 2005 Convention, that is preferential treatment for developing countries, be made more active in its implementation, especially for small island developing states, given our specificities. We have our own constraints and limitations. Despite our best intentions to align ourselves with international cultural policies, it remains difficult for us to put in practice the above, taking into account our limited resources. Therefore, a special consideration by UNESCO to SIDS in terms of Article 16 is warranted, and as such, we would request UNESCO to consider setting up a special forum for monitoring of this article in the spirit of fair culture. Ladies and gentlemen, it is high time that we consolidate our mutual cooperation, share our best practices and expertise for the benefit of interest and culture. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Minister of Arts and Cultural Heritage of Mauritius. And then I would like to invite His High Excellency, Mr. Pedro Adão e Silva, Minister of Culture, Portugal. He will give his intervention through a pre-recorded video.
É para mim uma honra poder dirigir-me a esta conferência que assinala os 40 anos da Mondiacult e da histórica declaração aprovada na cidade do México em 1982. Nestas 4 décadas percorreu-se um importante caminho. Ninguém hoje questiona seriamente que a cultura é ao mesmo tempo um elemento central da cidadania e um setor económico decisivo. A cultura é parte do sentido de pertença, de participação no país e é também indústria em que trabalham largos milhares de pessoas. Em Portugal avançámos muito em 40 anos na compreensão do papel da cultura como elemento-chave de uma política também de desenvolvimento sustentável. A cultura é, aliás, também um elemento nuclear da nossa vida em comum, é para todos e pertence a todos. É um dos setores mais vitais das nossas sociedades, justamente na medida em que está aberta e sensível à diversidade, às influências de fora, tanto quanto à pluralidade cá dentro. A política que definimos para a cultura está organizada em torno de 3 grandes princípios. É preciso, em primeiro lugar, institucionalizar o setor, dando a este campo das políticas públicas a previsibilidade que ele historicamente não teve. É também preciso modernizar, aproveitando as novas tecnologias, mas também fazendo face às profundas mudanças que nesta última década têm vindo a ocorrer na forma de aceder aos bens culturais. E, finalmente, é preciso democratizar, garantir o acesso e a participação de todas as camadas da população na cultura. Esta é, aliás, uma preocupação que está na matriz genética daquilo que é a nossa democracia, inscrita na Constituição Portuguesa, que nasceu da Revolução Democrática de 1974 e aproximamos do meio século da democracia em Portugal. Falamos em institucionalizar porque a cultura precisa de previsibilidade. As políticas de cultura, para produzirem efeitos, precisam de continuidade, de tempo, e de pouco serve ao Governo estabelecer uma relação de confiança com os que trabalham nesta área, sem que haja essa previsibilidade. Os trabalhadores da cultura precisam de saber com o que é que podem contar. E é também importante que possam dispor de uma segurança básica de rendimento num setor que, como sabem, é excepcionalmente marcado pela intermitência, pela sazonalidade e pela precariedade. A cultura tem de ser também um campo aberto à mudança, à criatividade, um espaço que permita a transgressão, a ruptura e, em parte, a antecipação do futuro. E é por isso que é preciso apostar na inovação ao mesmo tempo que se preserva aquilo que é o nosso património histórico. Aliás, a cultura permite qualificar a nossa oferta turística e diferenciá-la de outros países. Mas democratizar é talvez o mais importante dos três princípios que enunciei, porque a vitalidade cultural do país só ganha sentido se a cultura puder chegar a todas as pessoas. Sabemos todos que a desigualdade no acesso à cultura está estreitamente correlacionada com a escolaridade e também reflete o peso desigual das tarefas domésticas, bem como o desgaste tanto físico quanto mental. E não nos podemos esquecer que ainda estamos a recuperar de uma pandemia que teve um impacto fortemente negativo na cultura. Mas alargar o acesso à cultura tem em si mesmo um efeito criativo. Aqueles que têm consumos culturais mais amplos e mais diversificados são também os que se envolvem mais na criação cultural junto das suas comunidades. Mas as políticas que definimos para a cultura não são nem podem ser o mero resultado de uma vontade política determinada a partir de cima. O Estado facilita a criação e ajuda a estruturar o campo. Mas é igualmente importante criar relações entre as muitas coisas novas que a própria sociedade civil está a fazer pelo país todos os dias. Nunca estamos a construir no deserto, mas o que se trata é de aproveitar uma força que está disponível. Temos por isso de integrar, potenciar e dar sustentabilidade ao que já existe, mas temos também de institucionalizar, modernizar e democratizar o setor. Muito obrigado e bons trabalhos.
Thank you so much, Minister of Culture, Portugal. And then I would like to invite High Excellency Mr. Chung Byung-keuk, Vice Minister of Culture, Sports and Tourism of Republic of Korea. Please, the floor is yours.
Honorable delegates of the Minister of Culture from member states and international organizations. Good morning. My name is Chun Byung-keuk, First Vice Minister of Culture of the Republic of Korea. It's a great honor to attend this meeting. 40 years ago, at the first UNESCO Forum of Ministers of Culture held in Mexico, we defined what culture is and confirmed the fact that there is many hierarchy between cultures. And today, we have gathered here again in Mexico. And the purpose of this meeting is to bring together the member states to share wisdom during many changes in the technology surrounding cultural and artistic landscapes, including artificial intelligence and the metaverse. To this end, the Korean government will suggest 3 major areas as our challenges regarding the convergence of technology and art in the area of digital transformation, which are aligned with the UNESCO's recommendation on the ethics of AI. First, technology should be put to use in a way that will improve access by users. Korea is providing more digital services for users with different needs. For example, in the National Library for the Disabled, big data gathered over many years automatically recommends customized content to the users. Furthermore, leading Korean IT companies such as Samsung and LG have developed virtual human characters in the metaverse to communicate with customers and provide a variety of convenient functions. In particular, the metaverse platform Naver Gepetto, launched in 2018, has seen its users increase quickly by 100 million a year and is currently being used by more than 300 million people around the world. Second, intellectual property issues in the digital environment need to be resolved. Korea is working to make certain sharing is fair and to promote creativity by establishing a system of constant collaboration with the major trading countries to respond to online copyright violation. In addition, we plan to build the area of AI by improving related systems to further encourage big data analysis in the creativity industry. Finally, substantial digital-based education needs to be provided to everyone, including artists and the cultural professionals, to overcome the digital divide. In response to increased industrial demand, Korea has introduced a program to help professionals in immersive content. Recently, AI is being used in youth culture and art educational field to bring culture, education, and technology closer together. Dear colleagues, high-tech together with artistic imagination are helping to bring great freedom, power, and new experiences. The metaverse market is expected to stand a massive $5 trillion by 2030, creating great economic opportunities. Korea will support cutting-edge driven creation to further opportunities over the times. It is my sincere hope that this meeting will serve as a chance to share insight with the Minister of Culture of State and UNESCO. Finally, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Mexican government and UNESCO officials for hosting this forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Minister of Culture, Sports and Tourism of the Republic of Korea. And thank you so much, each and every one of you, for your interventions. After this, we will continue with interventions from the observers. You have 2 minutes for the intervention, and I would like to invite Ms. Natalia Armillos Velasco, Director General for Culture of the Organization of Ibero-American States. Please, the floor is yours.
Muy buenos días con todas, con todos.
Good morning,
Reciban un
you
atento
all.
saludo en nombre de la Organización
On
de Estados
behalf of
Iberoamericanos,
the
OI,
Ibero-American
y su
States
secretario general,
and its
Mariano
General
Jaunero
Secretary,
Blanco.
Mr. Blanco,
Mondiacult
Mondiacult 2022 is nourished of 40 years of experiences, reflections, and new contributions based on the different areas, among them the international leadership of UNESCO, and we are part of it as well. The specificity of the creative and cultural sector brings along different challenges for those who are leading design and implementation of public policies, referred to the objectives of intervention strategies of the state and the justification of public expenditure for culture to foster the sector. And by the way, we should keep on talking about investment or public expenditure, even more so when we say that culture is a pillar for sustainable development of our countries. And I would like to emphasize some ideas to foster public policies that will be renewed and strengthened that we need for growth and for sustainability of the creative sector, to foster and to strengthen the presence of artistic education in school curricula, to foster competencies in the education of the present with a perspective of gender equality, social justice, recognizing cultural diversity, peace, and its relationship with scientific and technological knowledge, to promote the development of competencies of the artistic creators, artists, and workers of culture related to new languages and digital narratives, as well as artificial intelligence. It is necessary to include of the profiles of the different artists, those areas of education, mediation, and cultural mediation. The regulation of the labor market by fostering regulations that will give better conditions for the workers of culture aim at social security and social protection, to foster interministerial programs to have creative economy, to generate an international framework that will be more homogeneous with intellectual property and trademark public policies to drive more and better culture for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your intervention. Throughout this thematic session, we have heard several important interventions. You have pointed out examples and suggestions for changes and ways on how we could maintain and strengthen a resilient cultural life and how we could protect and promote cultural diversity. and how we as a world community could place cultural rights, equal access to culture, social cohesion, and inclusion at the forefront. Unfortunately, there are no straight answers on how this could be done, and there are no easy or quick fixes. But it's obvious that this is a discussion we need to continue with, and these are issues we need to keep working with. So thank you again, each and every one of you, for your valuable interventions, and thank you to the audience for your participation in this thematic session.